Okay, so I'm just going to very briefly summarize some of the main strands from this meeting just in a couple of minutes. But before I do, I will just make some thank yous so I don't forget to do them. So yeah, first of all, massive thanks to Mohammed for organizing the meeting. A huge amount goes on by him and his team behind the scenes to make this all happen. So huge thank you to you. So I should say that Mohammed used to organize these meetings for many other groups, and he more or less doesn't do it for anyone anymore apart from us. So we're really lucky. He likes our community enough to keep organizing them. So that's great. Yeah, and thank you to you for coming. Thank you for everybody for coming, being so engaged, and particularly to all the speakers, all the chairs, all the poster presenters. Yeah, that's obviously without that this wouldn't have happened. Oh, thanks to Rachel for running around with the mic, and Andrew for running after everybody to get the mic, doing the tech as well. So how do I summarize 2 days of intensive talks? I've tried doing this in different ways over the years, and sometimes I've tried to map some things to the themes, but in my head everything was mapping to ecology today. So I'll explain why. So, and I was minded by, so this was actually my favorite lecturer when I was an undergraduate at the University of Dundee. This is John Raven. I don't know if any of you had come across him. He was a wonderful man. He died last year, sadly, but he was a fellow of the Royal Society. He defined all the carbon budgets of the oceans. He did lots of work on early plant evolution. He was a very inspirational lecturer. And when, as a first year undergraduate, he had a T-shirt that matched every lecture. So he sort of appealed to us all. But one of the highlights of my degree was we went to this mountain. It's Ben Lawyers. It's behind Loch Tay. So we started off in the water at the lake and then walked all the way up. And we had to work out what plants were where they were and how they'd speciated, how they'd evolved rather to live in the different areas. There's lots of rare and endemic plants. And I was remembering one of my colleagues said, but Prof, like, why do we have to learn all this stuff? I want to do a biochemistry degree. And I heard him saying, well, you have to learn the ecology building blocks because you don't know when it's going to be useful in your life. So I think John might be happy with my summary that I'm about to give because I felt that everything. So we started off this conference with a few lectures thinking about phages and the immune system. So we learned a lot about how, so Christina particularly was presenting about how phages are interacting with the adaptive and the innate immunity and how they're putting pressure on the bacteriophage, on bacteriophages, and sort of really how they're shaping the population of what's there. So we learned about the importance of interleukins, she talked about the phage traffic, particularly within the lymphocytes. And also there's still a lot that's becoming that we don't know about. For example, it seems a lot of patients appear to have these phage neutralizing antibodies, but when you look in the mice, there are limited studies, but it does look as if you don't see neutralization of the phages a given IP. So this is where we started our sort of ecology, because I think very often, certainly I always used to think just about phage bacteria without thinking of obviously the major important dynamic. And actually this was a figure from one of Christina's early papers, but I'm pretty sure she showed the data here first. I felt I could show that to illustrate this point. Then I think another theme was really looking at, continuing this, not just looking at bacteria and phages within that immune system, but actually looking at how what are the dynamics and how does that affect how we might use them. And again, that's sort of the ecology of how things are working. So that's sort of almost predator-prey relationships. So we were learning about sort of the fact that higher titers are not always best when you're giving phages, because that skews those ecological relationships to the point where the hosts are not, there's not a sustainable level of host to be able to support those bacteriophages. So we had nice ecology talks from different presenters looking at phage lifestyles and so on as well, and looking at also looking at those dynamics within those cocktails. And then all of the other interfering factors such as immune clearance, the cell cycle, and ribosome resources. So I think this various themes of this kept coming out in different presentations. And then I think there was another theme, again, sort of how different facets impact what we see in phages. So looking at prophages, biofilms, media, so both the inherent things within bacteria and various different entities that the bacteriophages are tackling, that affects what we see. So I think it's become more and more apparent, for example, that the host range that we see on bacteriophages is really related to the conditions in which we grow them. So that's really, really key. I should say, for what they're worth, I'll put the summary onto the. I can put the summary when Mohammed has the posters on the thing, in case anyone wants it. But we learned. So certainly the prophages are clearly playing really important roles, and I think they've gone from. I've seen over the years people. They were almost just seen as being, they were just there. Nobody really bothered to look at them. And now we're really trying to understand how we can learn them in different ways. So we saw different examples of that today in different talks and yesterday as well, looking at how different prophages are contributing to the biology of the host. And I think going forward, it's going to be super important to understand how adding lytic phages are going to interact with the prophages. We heard about this nice talk at the end about the GTAs. There was various biofilms came into several different talks, and also learning and using products both from prophages and phages. And then, yes, I put this picture here because I think Mojan stole the show with her in terms of the concepts of phage delivery by thinking about how we might use, phages can be used in different ways in many systems within agriculture. It makes sense to get the bees on our side, stack the ecology in the favor of a healthy plant microbiome. And then I thought there was a great session yesterday where people were presenting different methods. So we heard about these really incredible methods of being able to actually quantify phages using droplets. We saw some great talks using different aspects of fluorescence, different pipelines, looking at this individual responses. So I think that's really interesting. We often think at the population level rather than at what's happening at the level of the individual. We saw that things to do with the how we assess the quality of products at the end. Talks, so using mass spec. And then we saw lots of other sort of interesting talks as well today, and looking at the plaque morphologies, how we understand them, mutation rates, customizing chassis, and also actually just finding phages and bacterial genomes as well. And then finally, this is quite appropriate. We can end with a drink, just a virtual one, sadly, at this point. But how do we apply this information to sort of therapeutic and useful translational purposes? So certainly, I think the themes that kept recurring was that we need large libraries that are diverse. Clearly, a directed evolution is a useful approach. We looked at how specific phages are needed for capsules, and we saw different examples of phages being used for plants and shellfish. So essentially, as I put here, I think going forward, when people are designing cocktails, I think the more we can embed a significant understanding of phage ecology into our design and into all these ways to bring it together, then the more effective our products will be. So these are my take homes from the message. I'm sure you all got your own take homes, but I hope you enjoyed coming, and I hope that I haven't spoken to Mohammed about this. I don't know how, maybe you might be able to be persuaded to put one on next year, maybe. But anyway, I hope. Do you think you will, Mohammed? Do you think you'll put one on again next year for us? Great. Nothing like putting on the spot. So, next